Guys, I'm about to go live. Remember one thing, Ashwin, mute the live stream once I send the link, okay? Guys, I think the link will be up on the Brevity channel. It should be live now. I'm sending the link in general as we are live. What is being shown right now? The trailer, huh? Ashwin, is a TV on or something?
There was an idea. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people, see if they could become something more. See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could.
It's Rob from Brevity.
It's Vignesh from Brevity.
This is Shank from Brevity.
This is Sai from Brevity.
This is Shankar from Brevity.
This is Vishal from Brevity.
Hey guys, it's Sid from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity.
This is Lokesh from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity.
This is Akash over here, and welcome to Brevity.
When you have enough practice, where do I practice from? The internet is vast.
Brevity is a revolution in coding.
You will set sails for 2-pointer algorithms, and then sliding window algorithms, and trees, and graphs, and then finally DP.
In the month of July, the game begins.
I thought it's just DSA, it's just stats and trees, and what could go wrong, right?
Here are the companies which came during July for the slot 1 placements.
As you know, the companies which were coming to recruit us were asking very high level questions.
A lot could go wrong.
So today we have a very distinguished member of the community who have attended over 20 super dream companies and finally nailed one really big one.
Watch this.
Here we have -4, -1, 0, 3 and 10 as an input array.
First, we'll implement the logic, then add conditions for checking the edge cases, then debug if there is any errors, and optimize.
Step 1. Implement the algorithm.
Step 2, check for if there is any edge conditions.
Step 3. Debug.
Step 4, optimization.
Step 5. Time and space complexity.
So that done, once we exit this loop, we should have the maximum area. That is a container with most water.
Yeah, so as you can see, our code has been accepted. And now let's talk about the time complexity of our solution.
Okay, let's look at what a resume typically contains.
Okay, Ashwin, very good answer. So this is going to be our last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In the previous video, Robin explained how we're going to... What?
You haven't seen that video yet?
You know it's
Perfect, right? Choose your path. Java, C++, or Python. The choice is yours.
God damn it, Whitehead Jr.
There was an idea. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people, see if they could become something more. See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could.
It's Rob from Brevity.
It's Vignesh from Brevity.
This is Sham from Brevity.
This is Sai from Brevity.
This is Shankar from Brevity.
This is Vishal from Brevity.
Hey guys, it's Sid from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity.
This is Lokesh from Brevity. This is Ashwin from Brevity. This is Akash over here, and welcome to Brevity.
When you have enough practice, where do I practice from? The internet is vast.
Brevity is a revolution in coding.
We will set sails for 2-point algorithms
So I need
and then sliding window algorithms and trees and graphs and
As
then
a
finally
keynote live,
DP.
In the month of
Not
July, the game begins.
I thought it's just DSA, it's just stats and trees and what could be,
Yes,
what could go
that
wrong,
only,
right?
No, send
Here
send
are
again,
the
send.
companies which
That's
came
open.
during July for the slot 1 placements.
As you know, the companies which were coming to recruit us were asking very high level questions.
Guys, be proactive. If anyone's
Today we
mic
have
starts
a very
giving sound,
distinguished
server
member
mute
of
immediately.
community who have attended over
Remember, all
20
of you have
super
permission.
companies and finally nailed one really big one.
Watch this.
Giving moderator permission. Okay. That's Sairaj.
Here we have
Okay, okay.
-4, -1, 0, 3 and 10 as the input.
First, we'll implement the logic, then add conditions for checking the edge cases, then debug if there is any errors, and optimize.
Step 1. Implement the algorithm.
Step 2, check for if there is any edge conditions.
Step 3. Debugging.
Step 4, optimization.
Step 5. Time and space complexity.
So that done, once we exit this loop, we should have the maximum area. That is a container with most water.
Yeah, so as you can see, our code has been accepted. And now let's talk about the time complexity of our solution.
Let's look at what a resume typically contains.
Okay, Ashwin, very good answer. So this is going to be our last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In the previous video, Robin explained how we're going to... What?
You haven't seen that video yet?
You know it's...
Perfect, right? Choose your path. Java, C++, or Python. The choice is yours.
God damn it, Whitehead Jr.
There was an idea. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people. See if they could become something more. See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could.
It's Rob from Brevity.
It's Vignesh from Brevity.
This is Sham from Brevity.
This is Sai from Brevity.
This is Shankar from Brevity.
This is Vishal from Brevity.
Hey guys, it's Sid from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity.
This is Lokesh from Brevity. This is Ashwin from Brevity. This is Akash over here, and welcome to Brevity.
When you have enough practice, where do I practice from? The internet is vast.
Brevity is a revolution in coding.
We will set sails for 2-point algorithms and then
It's
sliding
almost
window
time, no?
algorithms and trees and graphs and then finally DP.
In the month of July, the game begins.
I thought it's just DSA, it's just stats and trees and what could go wrong, right?
Here are the companies which came during July for the slot 1 placements.
As you know, the companies which were coming to recruit us were
Change the side. Right now, it's
asking
Techgraph
very
X
high
Brevity.
level questions. You know,
A lot could go wrong.
So today we have a very distinguished member of community who have attended over 20 super dream companies and finally nailed one really big one.
Watch this.
Here we have -4, -1, 0, 3 and 10 as the input.
First, we'll implement the logic, then add conditions for checking the edge cases, then debug if there is any errors, and optimize.
Step 1. Implement the algorithm.
Step 2, check for if there is any edge conditions.
Step 3. Debugging.
Step 4, optimization.
Step 5. Time and space complexity.
So that done, once we
Shankar, say
exit this
something.
loop,
Can
we
you
should
hear
have
you?
the maximum area. That is a container with most water.
Yeah, so as you can see,
Okay, guys,
our
if
code
Shankar doesn't start
accepted.
talking, just
And
someone
now let's
improvise.
talk about the time complexity of
Yeah.
our solution.
Let's look at what a resume typically contains.
Okay, Ashwin, very good answer. So this is going to be our last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In the previous video, Robin explained how we're going to... What?
You haven't seen that video yet?
You know it's...
Perfect, right? Choose your path. Java, C++, or Python. The choice is yours.
Vignesh, try changing slides.
There was an idea.
Just change the next slide. I want to see if it's
bring
working.
together a group of remarkable people. See if they could become something more.
It went. Okay.
See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could.
It's Rob from Brevity.
It's Vignesh from Brevity.
This is Sham from Brevity.
This is Sai from Brevity.
This is Shankar from Brevity.
This is Vishal from Brevity.
Hey guys, it's Sid from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity. This is Lokesh from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity.
This is Akash over here, and welcome to Brevity.
When you have enough practice, where do I practice from? The internet is vast.
Brevity is a revolution in coding.
We will set sails for 2-pointer algorithms, and then sliding window algorithms, and trees, and graphs, and then finally DP.
In the month of July, the game begins.
I thought it's just DSA, it's just stats and trees and what could go wrong, right?
Here are the companies which came during July for the slot 1 placements.
As you know, the companies which were coming to recruit us
Can't hear
were
Robin.
asking very high level questions.
A lot could go wrong.
So today we have a very distinguished member of community who have attended over 20 super dream companies and finally nailed one really big one.
Watch this.
Here we have -4, -1, 0, 3 and 10 as the input type.
First, we'll implement the logic, then add conditions for checking the edge cases, then debug if there is any errors, and optimize.
Step 1. Implement the algorithm.
Step 2, check for if there is any edge conditions.
Step 3. Debugging.
Step 4, optimization.
Step 5. Time and space complexity.
So that done, once we exit this loop, we should have the maximum area. That is a container with most water.
Yeah, so as you can see, our code has been accepted. And now let's talk about the time complexity of our solution.
Let's look at what a resume typically contains.
Okay, Ashwin, very good answer. So this is going to be our last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In the previous video, Robin explained how we're going to... What?
You haven't seen that video yet?
You know it's...
Perfect, right? Choose your paths. Java, C++, or Python. The choice is yours.
God damn it, Whitehead Jr.
There was an idea. The idea was to bring together a group of remarkable people. See if they could become something more. See if they could work together when we needed them to fight the battles that we never could.
It's Rob from Brevity.
It's Vignesh from Brevity.
This is Sham from Brevity.
This is Sai from Brevity.
This is Shankar from Brevity.
This is Vishal from Brevity.
Hey guys, it's Sid from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity. This is Lokesh from Brevity.
This is Ashwin from Brevity.
This is Akash over here, and welcome to Brevity.
When you have enough practice, where do I practice from? The internet is vast.
Brevity is a revolution in coding.
We will set sails for 2-pointer algorithms, and then sliding window algorithms, and trees, and graphs, and then finally DP.
In the month of July, the game begins.
I thought it's just DSA, it's just stats and trees and what could go wrong, right?
Here are the companies which came during July for the slot 1 placements.
As you know, the companies which were coming to recruit us were asking very high level questions.
A lot could go wrong.
So today we have a very distinguished member of community who have attended over 20 super dream companies and finally nailed one really big one.
Watch this.
Here we have -4, -1, 0, 3 and 10 as the input type.
First, we'll implement the logic, then add conditions for checking the edge cases, then debug if there is any errors, and optimize.
Step 1. Implement the algorithm.
Step 2, check for if there is any edge conditions.
Step 3. Debugging.
Step 4, optimization.
Step 5. Time and space complexity.
So that done, once we exit this loop, we should have the maximum area. that is the container with most water.
Yeah, so as you can see, our code has been accepted. And now let's talk about the time complexity of our solution.
Let's look at what a resume typically contains.
Okay, Ashwin, very good answer. So this is going to be our last question. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In the previous video, Robin explained how we're going to... What?
You haven't seen that video yet?
You know it's...
Perfect, right? Choose your path. Java, C++, or Python. The choice is yours.
God damn it, Whitehead Jr.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, I'm gonna mute as well.
Me too.
Rob, you can press F7.
Right, Akash, get rid of 47.
Start பண்ணலாமா?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
Okay. Okay. Akash, let's go.
First on தானே?
Yeah. So good evening. Good evening, guys. This is Sampath from Techgraph. So let's sorry for that. So this is Sampath from Techgraph. So let's kick off the talk. So yeah, we are really sorry for yesterday because like we had a small technical trouble. So for you guys, we have organized this second session. Then few people might be wondering why this talk has been organized. We have through the current situation, and we thought this would be the ideal phase for you guys to begin with your placement preparation. As you all know, most of our year would be the third years. So Tech Club as a unit, we have always kicked off our club talks with our seniors who have had placement and master's experience. But for a change, what we thought was like, why not kick it off with a community who's striving hard in imparting knowledge just like us? So we thought it would be more beneficial because they are a group of highly motivated people with the right experience. So what we did is we went through the YouTube channel and we find it pretty much impressive. So we actually wanted them to come and organize a talk about placement here, and that's how this collaboration happened. So this is going to be a completely informal talk. And if you guys have any question, stop us right there and feel free to post your Q&As. So I'll from here on, Vignesh will take.
Thank you, Sampath. We are Brevity, and our motto is code intuitively. Let's look at that in detail with Akash.
Okay. So hello and a good evening to one and all over here. There are 46 people watching right now. So to the 46 of you, welcome to Brevity. We are not just a YouTube channel. Brevity, I would say, is more of an ecosystem where, you know, currently we are the ones, giving the knowledge or imparting the knowledge to our juniors. And when we are done, they can take over the reins and continue what we have started. So that is what Brevity is, where one learns from the other. So a quick introduction about our team. So we are a bunch of final years from VIT Chennai, and there are 10 of us. So next slide, please, Vignesh. Okay. So we have Vignesh over here. So Vignesh is the first among us who got placed, and he got placed in PayPal. And then we have Robin, who's placed in Techion. Then we have Shyam Suresh, who's placed in JP Morgan. We have Vishal, who's placed in Nielsen. We have the American Express duo of Siddharth Sairaj and Sai Aditya. Then we have our douche bank employee, Mr. Ashwin, and Shankar, Lokesh, and Ashwin Kumar, and also myself, Akash. So this is the team. And among us, we have interview experiences ranging from over 10 super dream companies and a few dream companies as well. So, next slide, please. Okay. So, you might be from different backgrounds. Some of you might be from a CSE background, some of you might be from an ECE background or a mechanical background. But these days, coding is not just seen as something to have as a bonus on a candidate by an interviewer. Coding is something that is essential. Coding is something that is very, very important in each and every candidate that an interviewer looks into, irrespective of your educational background. The reason behind this is pretty simple. We have all seen our IPL, and we can all see Mr. Chintu coding apps when he's just 6 year old. So when Mr. Chintu can code an app at 6 year old, it's normal to have expectations of a 21-year-old software engineers like us to code apps profusely in our meantime. So coding is very, very important in nowadays. And we did not get our offers just like that. We had to go through a lot of different struggles. And to talk more about our struggles, we have Vignesh over here. Vignesh, over to you.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Vignesh.
Okay. Hello and welcome to Brevity. As Akash mentioned, we are VIT students and we are here to describe a plan of action. I'm sure you must have all undergone the stress of going through placements or just learning something on your own. You know, it's very stressful, it's very confusing, and it takes a large toll on your self-esteem when you're not able to learn something quickly. Yeah, we understand this part because we went through the same thing too. And it's kind of ironic because when you want to learn something, there is information available everywhere, and yet most of it is not accessible. Some of it is present behind a paywall, or you'll have to pay for the courses that will teach you. And the other times, there's just free information floating around and drowning in the ocean called internet. We try to learn from the internet for our placements too. And it was very confusing and scary because every time there was a selection test, each one would be nothing like the previous one. It would be completely unrelated, and every time we'll be left wondering, are we good enough for this? After we pass through all of these tests, these firewalls, we can now guarantee that they have very common patterns which you can pick up and crack any interview that you want. We provide a roadmap and materials to help you sail in the right direction. What to start with, how to proceed, and what exactly do you want. You'll have to materialize all of that. For that, Brevity provides a roadmap of sorts. A roadmap as in, you'll be given materials and a plan of action where you'll start from either 2 pointers, sliding windows, and trees, graphs, all of those things will be covered, which is organized as weeks in our YouTube channel. This plan is for 2.5 months. So within 2.5 months, you will know how to code intuitively in any of your chosen languages between Python, C++, and Java. We provide coding experiences, interview experiences, all of those in these three languages. As a guide, this is something how our YouTube channel looks like. There is week 0, where it is a crash course into STL and all the background that you need to get started with your coding journey. After that, there's 2 weeks of 2 pointers, 2 weeks of sliding windows, trees, graphs, binary search, all of those together. We also cover our interview experiences in an interesting TV show format called Brevity, where we'll be interviewing one of the selects into Super Dream, and we'll ask them what their experience is and such that we can learn from them. We provide all of this information for your benefit, for free of cost and out of our own social costs. Let's begin with factual information about how the placement process looked like. And then we'll work on the tips towards it. To start it off, I request Cyrox to start. Sai Aditya.
Thank you, Vignesh. So continuing the placement process here, let's look at the package options usually which are available to, it's common to almost every college, but in particular right now we are seeing like with SSN and VIT. So we have Marquee, which is 20 plus LPA, Super Dream, which is 20 to 10 LPA, Dream, which is 5 to 10 LPA, and regular, which is less than 5 LPA. So once you get placed in any of these bands, you won't be able to sit for any other companies higher than that band. So also, let's look at the companies which come for each of these bands. So for 20 plus LPA, we usually get Amazon, PayPal, App Dynamics, Morgan Stanley, and the big banner companies we expect from 20 plus LPA. And regarding Super Dream, which is 10 to 20 LPA, we see JP Morgan, Cisco, which was supposed to be 20 plus, but in our batch, it came for Super Dream, which was 10 to 20, American Express, Techion, Hyperverge, and many other 10 to 20 LPA companies came for us. And regarding Dream, there was Amadeus, IBM, Freshworks, ZS Associates, and many more companies. Like the most of the companies which came to for us, it was in Dream right now. So the number of companies there was the most in Dream. So now regarding regular, it's like the common TCS, CTS, Mindtree, L&T also came with the packages of, I guess, 3.3 to 4 LPA. So we have a portal named Campus Interaction, where we get to see the number of companies visited for our for your college, and we can see the eligible companies, like what and all companies you can apply for, and you can see what and all companies you have applied. So like these placement cells from your college will keep on giving you mails, so you'll be able to see like what and all companies you have applied. And if you have been placed, you'll have a section called placed companies. So there you'll be able to see like whether you have been placed in a Super Dream internship or Dream internship or placement, like a full-time employment or something like that. So you'll have a place for that. And regarding the mails, we get like, I guess right now we have 2000 or 2500 mails so far from our placement cell. So we get to know like each of the companies whichever come with their CTC and with their job description and what are the eligible branches for those companies. So we get to see that. And regarding also the pre-placement talk, about the details of when the pre-placement talk will happen, when the assessment will happen, when the interview rounds will happen. If the company wants to disclose, it will be disclosed in these mails. So now let's see about pre-placement talk. So also, like I would like to point out, we have two main flows of placement process. So you have assessment, pre-placement talk, interview rounds, and then result, or you have pre-placement talk, assessment, interview rounds, and then result. So The key difference there will be like if you in the first flow of process you have assessment, the shortlisted students alone go to the pre-placement talk and then have their interview rounds. In the second one you have the talk, you have assessment, based on that assessment you get shortlisted and then go for your interviews. So that's the only main difference in these two. And regarding the pre-placement talk, I would like to point out a few points. Like the companies would like to disclose their CTC, or they may not be willing to share. So the breakup of the CTC mostly will be provided by companies which will be coming. Also you can look out for the benefits the company is providing to you, like a reallocation a bonus they might provide you, and also about the assessment they will be keeping. So if luckily your company is keeping the assessment after your pre-placement talk, so you can ask them about this assessment or about the interview rounds. So please don't hesitate to ask them in the chat box they provide. And also this will be like your main point where you will know whether you should sit for the company or not. So this is the turning point, because you'll have many opportunities coming. It's not just that you have to sit for this company, or if you don't get this company, there is no hope. So based on the company's pre-placement talk, you can very well get an idea for whether to continue with it or not. So next up, we have the types of interviews. Over to you, Rob.
Thank you, Sai. So, hello guys, my name is Rob, and in this section we'll be talking about the types of interviews which you guys might face during your placement. Now, there are basically two types of interviews you might have. Let me start with the rapid fire round. And for those of you who are not aware, a rapid fire round is where they will be asking you a bunch of questions from various topics, and you'll have to answer them really quickly. And as soon as you finish answering one particular question, they will bombard you with the next question. So typically you'll be having an interview panel which will be consisting of 2 to 3 members, and they will be asking you around 10 to 15 questions within 5 to 10 minutes. So as you can see over here, they're going to ask you an average of 2 questions per minute. So maybe one question will be like, what are the pillars of OOPS? As soon as you finish answering that question, they can ask you a next question. What is the difference between SQL and NoSQL? So you have to be really strong with your CS fundamentals, you have to be good with aptitude, and you have to be really good with the projects which you have mentioned in your resume. Now looking at the tips which you can use to survive this sort of a round, first of all, you have to be really thorough with everything on your resume. So this means you shouldn't be including skills you don't have or projects which you didn't do. And at the same time, don't hesitate to say, I don't know, if you don't know the answer to something. Now, I have personally faced one of these interviews, and I was asked around 12 or 13 questions, and I did not know the answer to 1 or 2 questions. But despite that, I was still able to qualify for the next round, where only 4 people made it out of 40. So the next thing is prepare the frequently asked interview questions beforehand. A few slides later, I'll be sharing you a link where we have placed the most frequently asked questions from various links, and you can take note of this and really learn these questions well, because 90% of the time, these are the questions which will be asked during these sort of interviews. Never be obligated to reply instantly as well. You can think before you give your answer. And remember, as with any other interview, confidence is always going to be key. So never use phrases such as I think or my guess is, because to the interviewer, this is going to indicate self-doubt. So the best advice I can give you is practice this sort of an interview with a friend, where you can ask like 10 or 15 questions to him, and then he can ask the same questions back to you. So this will give you a sort of practice with the environment which you will be facing during this sort of an interview. Now the next sort of interview you might be facing is a layered interview, and Vignesh will be handling that in detail.
Hello.
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay, let's get started. So here's the thing, guys. This is a layered type of interview where you'll be facing multiple levels of interview. This is very common among Amazon, PayPal, and all those slot one super dream companies because each passing round gets difficult and more difficult. Amazon has a specific round called bar raiser round where it will be very difficult than what they have faced until now, just to make sure that they have very high quality engineers in Amazon. It looks something like this. First, there is a coding or aptitude shortlist round. That is, there will be roughly 3,000 to 4,000 people who will be signing up for either Amazon or PayPal or Microsoft or Google, one of those companies. To shortlist that to either 300 to 400 range, such that is manageable by the interviewers, the first round will be shortlist round. After that, once you clear that, now this round depends upon either your CGPA or it depends upon how well you perform in the test that they provide. Amazon uses something called AMCAT. It is a combination of coding questions. There will be roughly 3 coding questions, and apart from that, there will be a lot of aptitude and quantitative questions. If you have a very good score in that, then you might expect to get selected. But if you have very high CGPA and very good score, they are not leaving you alone. So you'll be moving to the next round, which is a technical interview round. This is more of a face-to-face usually, but these days it's more of a video call type of interviews. There is a couple of variations in this. One is that some companies will have 3 or 4 technical rounds, and then there will be one HR round. The other companies, there will be 2 technical rounds, one behavioral round, and then HR round. Let's look at generally what a technical round is. Here you will be questioned upon different concepts from your college days like OS, DBMS, and then you will also be asked to live code in front of them with a couple of coding questions that they will select. Here you will have to make sure that your code is actually what you wanted to do and make sure you cover all the edge cases also. Because if you have one variable extra and you're not able to explain why you added that variable, then it's going to look very bad in front of them. Going further, if you cleared all these rounds, you'll have one more behavioral round. This is slightly uncommon, but yet this is visible in different different processes for interviews. Here you'll be asked puzzles and other situation-based questions. Robin will explain how to solve that using a technique called STAR. But for now, all you have to know is that you'll be given a situation where you'll have to tell how you'll react. Or the others, they'll ask you a question where something like, at what situation did you have to expose your leadership skills? So you will answer such kind of questions, and then they might also ask you puzzles. If you cross all these barriers, then you are nearly reaching the end. Next is the HR round. If you come this far, then you've done really well in all of the previous rounds, and you can be expected to be among the top shortlist also. You be polite and try not to be aggressive during HR round because that will be a very huge red flag. So you might fail in this also, except try to moderate yourself. Here you will be asked questions like, tell me about yourself, what is your strengths and weaknesses, but be polite and always be prepared for these general type of questions because once you solve this, there is no stopping you. You will become an employee of Google, Amazon, or one of those big 5 companies. So that's it. What you can expect is there will definitely be one shortlist round and one HR round. In between, there is definitely going to be 1 or 2 technical rounds, but the other rounds are dependent upon the companies. Now, let's take a very quick break to see what we've seen till now. We've seen intro, that who are we? We are from Brevity. Now we'll answer a couple of the questions on our YouTube chat. If you have any question, feel free to ask there and we'll answer it. Karthik has asked tell about placements until which companies got. I'm assuming he's asking about placements. As far as we've explained till now, these are the different methods in which placements can proceed. And if you're asking until which companies got, I'm assuming that means which are the companies we got. We have experiences from Amazon, PayPal, Techion, Hyperverge, American Express. That's where we are placed. But we've also attended a lot of interviews and accumulated all of our experiences. And the companies that will visit your campus will depend upon which college you are from. If you're SSN or VIT, then expect really good companies to be present there. I think that answers your question, doesn't it? Okay, the next question is internships for third years and packed rules. Placement rules, like Sai LPA explained, it's very simple. There are different bands based upon what LPA those companies provide. There's Marquee, which in case is Super Dream only for VAT, slot one Super Dream. And then there's Super Dream, Dream, and also there is regular offers. If you got an offer in regular, you can sit for any of the other companies also, Dream, Super Dream, and slot one Super Dream. Um, that's basically the only rule that you will have to know. Nowadays, there is a pattern of making a different. Okay, there's another question, I guess. What is Amazon's CGPA requirement? Robin, would you like to take that?
Yeah, sure. If you look at the bigger companies such as Amazon and PayPal and all of those tier one companies, their CGPA requirement is actually going to be pretty less. I believe in our campus it was 7 CGPA, but the fact of the matter is the higher CGPA you are, the more likely you are to get shortlisted for the next upcoming rounds. Because let's say that around 100 people aced the test and they got every single question right, but Amazon wants only 50 people to write the test. So in that case, they might have a criteria where they'll be checking your CGPA, your 10th and 12th marks, and so on and so forth. But as far as what the requirement is, like for the top companies, even an 8 GPA or a 7.5 GPA will get you through to the initial round.
Okay. There's another question. I think JP Morgan package has been answered by Sahayatya. How important are internships, and is it okay to do an unpaid internship? Okay, this is a slightly controversial topic. People might tell you that you should go for internship just to gain experience, but it's an internship for a reason. It's not slavery. So try not to do unpaid internships. And yes, they are important. The ideal number of internships is 2 throughout your college career. But if you've done internship towards the end of third year in one of the big 5 companies or a really good prestigious company, then 1 is good enough, I would say. I think there was another question related to this. Internships for third year students by Gunjan. Internships for third years will be similar to placements only, except they'll come during the December of your third year in college to get to hire interns and other selects for themselves. In which case, the process will kind of be similar only. First, there will be there'll be coding rounds, and then there'll be one interview round and HR round. It will be slightly less rigorous than placements, but it would be still tough to crack. That is regarding your third year placements. There is another question by Digant Rao. I was wondering if companies consider your background, whether you're actually give priority to the job that you want. Could you tell about? Okay, that is the question, I guess.
We can answer that question after the next section because we're kind of covering that.
Okay, beautiful. So I think that marks the end of this tiny tea break. We'll have one more coffee break soon, so we'll discuss another question during that period of time. Let's continue. Robin?
Yes. Okay. So now you have aced that online test and you're ready for your first interview, but you have no idea how to go about it. So here I'm going to talk about some general hacks which we'll be using in order to ace that interview which I've just. So I'm going to tackle this in 5 steps, right? So step 1 is going to be to stalk. Vignesh, if you go to that slide. So step 1 is going to be stalking. So what are the sort of platforms you are going to have to stalk? Well, the first one is going to be Glassdoor. And for those of you who are not aware of what Glassdoor is, it is basically like a sort of place where you can learn about the companies, right? So let's say that you want to know about how the work environment is at a certain company which has just visited your college. You can look at the reviews given by both former and current employees and you'll know about the pros and cons of the company. It's like Amazon where before you buy a product, you look at the pros and cons in the comment section. Similar to that, that is how Glassdoor works for companies. The next thing is going to be Geeks for Geeks. And most of you would have heard of Geeks for Geeks by now. But there is something special called the interview experience section in Geeks for Geeks. So let's say that you have your Amazon interview tomorrow. What you have to Google is Geeks for Geeks Amazon interview experience. And you're going to find many interview experiences by former students who are now employees of Amazon, and they will describe how that journey was and the sort of questions which they faced during their interview. This is going to be really crucial as you'll get an idea of how your interview is going to be the next day. Finally, we have LinkedIn. Now, some companies, they release the names of the interviewers which you will be having on the next day. So you can take an opportunity and use LinkedIn to get some background details about your interviewer, and you'll know what topics they're strong in. Like maybe you'll have an interviewer who's very good at machine learning. And if you're not so comfortable with machine learning, you might want to stay away from topics which are pertaining to machine learning. This could be the difference between you getting into the company or not. So you can really consider this as well. So that was step 1. Let's move on to step 2, which is practice. Now, 90% of the time, most of these interviews have very standard questions. Questions like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? What are the pillars of OOPS? What is the difference between MongoDB and MySQL? These sort of questions are asked so frequently that it's best to learn the answers to these questions beforehand. So for example, for where do you see yourself in 5 years, you can prepare some sort of a speech beforehand so that you don't have to think too much during the interview. At the same time, the most frequently asked question is going to be, tell me about yourself. So for this question, there's actually something called an elevator pitch which you can prepare. Now, pitch is where you are basically going to advertise yourself for 40 to 45 seconds, and you're going to give a very good first impression to the interviewer based on what you're going to say. So it's a good idea to plan this beforehand and prepare something which is really enticing. Now let's move on to step 3, which is the planning phase. Now the first thing you'll have to do is plan your attire, obviously. Since most interviews nowadays are going to be video calls, you can have a formal shirt ready and it's going to make you look more professional during the interview. You should also have copies of your resume ready and a notebook and a pen as well, so that when they want you to work out a certain question, you don't have to go running around your house hunting for a pen. Also be punctual, never arrive late for an interview. This is going to give a bad impression to the interviewer if you happen to be late. Also, in every interview, there's going to be a section where the interviewer asks you if you have any questions for him. And this is a really good opportunity to showcase that you really want to get into this company and you have some really good and interesting questions to ask him, such as what is the work-life balance like at the company? What is the scope of growth which you will be having in the company? And what are the challenges which the interviewer has faced in his role so far? So let's move on to step 4, which is going to be the impressions. So remember the quote, first impression is the best impression. So over here, remember to have a very positive body language and attitude and never be rude to your interviewers. At the end of the day, they are the ones who are going to facilitate you to get a job. So try to win them over with authenticity and positivity. And always respond truthfully to the questions asked. Don't portray yourself to be someone you're not. Also keep your answers short and precise. Nobody wants to hear a 5-minute speech about who you are and where your background is from. So try to keep it short and to the point. Finally, we have the step 5, which is going to be STAR. Now, this is something me and Vignesh learnt about during our Amazon interviews. And what this stands for is situation, task, action, and result. So many times during the interview, they're going to ask you behavioral questions, such as, tell me about a time where you made a change in a situation or a project. So over here, a good storytelling technique to answer the question is going to be to use this methodology. First, describe the situation that you are in. What was the background behind the project? Next, what is the task? What is the task you had to do? Over here, you have to highlight the challenges you faced, the constraints that were there for the projects, the deadlines you faced, and the issues you had in the project as well. After this, describe the action which you took that made a difference. Over here, make sure that you explain the actions which you took and not something which the other members of your team took. Because over here, you're trying to highlight yourself to be an asset to the company. So over here, highlight your leadership skills, the initiative which you took, and the integrity which you showed during the project. Finally, describe the result, which is the outcome of your actions. Over here, highlight the improvements you faced in the existing situation, the cost saving which you did, and the achievements which you had during this project. So this is going to be all for the general tips. Let's move on to the technical side of things. Now over here, I have highlighted some of the subjects which are really important for placements. And if you're a CSE student and you're looking at this list, you're probably a bit relieved, right? Because you should have covered all this in your second year, and they are all a part of the program core subjects, and you should have covered them already. So now what if you're a non-CSE student? I believe one of you asked this question. What if you're from an ECE background or from a EEE background? Do you get exempted from these courses? Absolutely not. These recruiters are going to ask similar questions to all candidates to ensure equality. And they are not going to ask you questions based on your branch. I've seen this question pop up in so many pre-placement talks. Like even during the Amazon pre-placement talk, the Techion pre-placement talk, this question was asked. What about the ECE students? What about the EEE students? And the answer is pretty much the same. They're going to ask you the same questions regardless of your branch. And if you want to get into an IT company, you need to have fundamental knowledge of computer science subjects. So you have to start doing these subjects in your free time. So for your convenience, I've arranged these subjects based on the importance. Now first we have data structures and algorithms, and I'm sure we all know this is the most important thing which is going to be asked in your interviews. Your technical interviews, your coding rounds is going to be based on data structure, right? Next we have operating systems, database management systems, and computer networks. And these are the three most important subjects where they'll ask you both MCQs as well as in the technical rounds, they'll be asking you theoretical questions on these subjects as well. So very strong fundamental knowledge of these subjects is a must. Next we have OOPS, and in OOPS, the concepts which we usually cover: inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation. You should be thorough with all of these concepts, and you should be able to program in one of these languages such as Java, Python, or C++. Next we have software engineering and IWP, and these are asked certain companies, although the frequency is not as much as the previous subjects. But for internet and web programming, make sure that you know how the web works and the various calls in the REST API as well. And you try to be good in any one of the tech stacks. Finally, we have CAO and system design, and you can consider yourself really unlucky if questions from these subjects are asked. They are not so frequent, but get to these subjects once you're done with the other subjects. Next, I'll be showing you the syllabus for the most important subjects. Now, if you look at DBMS, the most important thing is going to be the structured query language, which is SQL. And in 90% of the interviews, you will face SQL. So be sure that you're really strong in SQL. Other than this, you can also look at Unit 3 and Unit 6, which is normalization and the ACID properties of a database. We'll be sharing these slides with you, so you can look at this in detail later. Next, when it comes to operating systems, Amazon really likes operating systems. Like, that's all I can tell you. Because during the interview, I was asked questions about the job scheduling algorithms. I had to code the fork and join in Java. And I also had to code the readers and writers problem in Java as well, using binary semaphore. So you can consider all of these as really important topics for all the tier 1 companies. Next, moving on, we have networks. And when it comes to networks, you're basically going to see these in MCQs. So be really strong with the 7-layer of the OSI model. And you need to know what each layer does. That is going to be the most important thing when it comes to networks. At the same time, the protocols as well. Such as in the transport layer, you have the TCP protocol and the UDP protocol. In the application layer, you have the FTP protocol and the HTTP protocols. So you have to know what these protocols do and why they are important for that particular layer. Finally, we have software engineering, and this is not asked very often, but you need to know these various models such as the waterfall model, the evolutionary model, and so on and so forth, because they can ask you these sort of questions in interviews. Like I have faced it in one of my interviews. So it's a good idea to cover these topics, and I've highlighted the important topics using the stars. Now next, moving on, Vignesh will be talking about the coding hacks which you can do during your technical.
So hey guys, let's say now you entered the placement. Now there's two different occasions where you might encounter coding. One, during your massive shortlist. In that you'll have to solve 3 questions or 4 questions, or sometimes you might even be asked to solve, let's see how much you can solve in 10 questions. These kind of things happen. Some coding shortlist rounds are completely based upon programming questions alone, and the others are based upon aptitude. There's also debugging sections, all of those. which means that for software engineering jobs, coding is a staple. It's not going away anywhere. Now, like all other things in life, this can be improved with practice. First, for the coding round, you will have to practice consistently and dedicatedly every single time. That that is the only thing that is going to get you through the massive shortlist round. Now, let's say you've cleared that round. If you cleared that round, then the next you'll be facing is a coding round during technical interview, where you can have certain kind of hacks and tricks that will make you appear better than all other candidates. Step 1, try to be bold and sound confident. Even if you're slightly doubtful, make sure that you convey that you're going to give it a try, and then be bold. If you're confident about something, make sure that they know it, that you're very confident about whatever you're trying to say. Next, try to think out loud. That is, if you try to maintain some sort of silence, then interviewers are going to get very skeptical and start to act suspiciously. Because in real life they will give you time, but in coding interviews on online, what happens is that they might suspect that you're opening another tab and checking for the answers. Do not leave any room for that kind of questions. Whatever you're thinking, think it out loud. What is the different approaches that is going on inside your head? Thirdly, if you're stuck on some approach, take one moment and think out loud a different approach to this. That will show that you're trying to take a moment to think out of the box. This is very important because not only does your answer matter, but also what are the different approaches that you're taking and how your entire thought process works. This is very important for an interviewer. After that, you don't really have to start coding. When you start coding, it doesn't have to be the most optimized approach. You can start with a very brute force n square or n cube kind of algorithm, and then slowly optimize your way into it. You will have enough time to do it if you think fast. After you're done implementing the logic, try to consider all the edge cases, because if you cover all the edge cases, that is going to leave a very lasting impression on your interviewer, and it will be very good for your career. And finally, here's the very important hack that you can actually use. You don't really have to tell the entire approach and then get their approval. Let's say you're going to start using counting sort. Tell them I'm going to use counting sort. Now they'll ask you either if they ask you why would you choose that, then you can be sure that there is some problem that they didn't expect you to use that. Now you can ask them. Then now you can start explaining why you're using counting sort. You might have a moment of clarity, or the interviewer might give you a clue about why or why not to go into that direction. Like this, for every single decision that you make, try to notice what the reaction is and what they are responding to that. This is very important, and you can have a lot of success if you follow these steps. Now, let's take a moment to address what are the different questions on our chat. If you have any questions, we'll provide a couple of minutes and you can answer it. And we'll answer those questions for you. Scan this QR code to get the materials that we've uploaded. There is a lot of materials that you can use, which we use and found useful. Okay, let's answer these questions. This is Digant Rao. Sorry, this is off topic, but I wanted to know if you are required to have an internship experience to enter a master's degree. I think in most universities, one of the internship is necessary to get the required credits and finish your bachelor's degree. But apart from that, your question is, how many internships is ideal for entering masters? So that are you online? I think you will be best fit to answer this question. Siddharth?
Yes, Vignesh. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Now you're back on.
Hello.
Yeah. We can hear you.
Cool. So, if you want to get into a university, the internships actually doesn't matter because it's all into your academics and your GRE and those kind of scores. If you're planning to get a job abroad, like if you're planning to study in US and also get a job in US, it'll be really helpful to have work experience, because usually companies will have some minimum 1 year work experience, minimum 6 months work experience kind of criteria. So having some sort of work experience surely will help if you want to get a job after masters. So try to do 1 or 2 internships. It will surely help if you trying to settle abroad. Have I answered your question?
Okay, let's assume we have.
Okay.
Okay, Digant Rao, wow, you are on fire today. Don't we have time constraints during coding interviews as well? What is the usual amount of time allocated per problem? If you have entered face-to-face coding interview, yes, there is a time limit, but it depends upon the interviewer to enforce it or cut short. That is completely within his rights. Usually, you'll be given some amount of time, like 1 hour or 1.5 hour, and the number of questions he asks you is again variable. But you can expect if it is something like Amazon or PayPal or Microsoft or Google, there's roughly going to be 2 or 3 questions maximum for the coding round, which is during technical round. Within this, you will be requested to ask. You will be requested to solve a lot of code online in a shared text editor. So if you're worried about time constraint, yes, you have. It's not per problem basis. If you can solve things fast, you might be asked more questions, and it is entirely up to the company and the interviewer's personal perception to do that. I hope we've answered that question. And thank you, Digant, for asking that question. Do not feel shy to ask any more. We really encourage such behavior. We'll wait a couple more minutes because there's latency between our stream and YouTube live. While we wait, I request you to join our Discord server because all of your questions will be answered there also. If others have questions, you can answer them. If you have questions, others will answer you. All we're trying to do is build a good community of programmers and learners. And we'll also be sharing materials, roadmaps, and notifications for our YouTube videos. So stay tuned over there. Gunjan, just now one of you said that you were asked to code some question related to OS. How to prepare that? That's Robin Thomas. Robin?
Okay. So when it comes to operating systems, if you're a CSE student, you'd have had a lab component for that subject. So over that, they would have covered these topics in detail, and you'd have coded it in C++ or Java. Now, if you haven't, done it in your subjects, then what you can do is there are many online YouTube channels where they teach this in detail. If you wish, we can share those resources with you. Like that's where I studied from personally. And there's also this, in Geeks for Geeks, they cover this in detail. Like one of the questions I had to code in operating systems for Amazon was LRU cache, which is the least recently used disk scheduling method. And Geeks for Geeks has covered it in detail along with a video explanation. So I would say Geeks for Geeks could be the top choice for learning this. I hope that answered you.
Okay. Please do share. Never took lab seriously. Yes, same here. Apart from that, there is one more question by Divya. Hi, should we arrive at the edge cases for? How should we arrive at the edge cases for a problem? Any tips or procedures? Okay, this is mostly practice based, but there are certain avenues that you can look into. One, assume what if the input array is empty, or there is only one element or few elements. Then check it again for large number of values like million, 10 million. Those are certain edge cases. Usually you'll run into underflow and overflow kind of errors if you are using an int variable for a count. So ask the interviewer what kind of limit that is, so you can have a little bit more clarity and regarding the constraints that they have. The other is your input range. For example, when I said input number of 10 million, I meant the number of inputs that is provided to you. In sometimes, each input might fit within a range like 0 to 200 or 0 to 500 range. Ask about that also, because if that is not the case, you might have to switch from int to long or long to float or float to double. Those things are important. And when you, again, I'm repeating, when you have such kind of limits, try to check for all their limits, that is, if they overflow or underflow, what happens in those scenarios. These are the general things that will happen. And if you're working on trees or something, check what happens when the pointer is null. Those kind of null pointer exceptions also have to be taken in place. So these are the common avenues that you can look into. I think that's all that question, Divya. Okay, I think we'll continue it during the next break that we have. We'll be covering a little bit more on aptitude and more. So we'll get back to that. You're a great audience, guys. Keep populating the questions. We'll answer all of it cumulatively in the next break. Okay, let's continue. Now I would like to request Shankar to explain what are different types of aptitude and where to learn it from. Shankar?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue.
Okay, cool. Next slide, please.
Okay.
Okay. So you're in your first round of attending company test. That is either your aptitude round or technical MCQs. And mainly in the aptitude round, you will focus on these 4 topics. That is quants, logical, data interpretation, which will be graph based, and the last one will be verbal. But usually they are not in this order at all. So some companies might tell you to finish off the quants or logical sections first, then go for the verbal data interpretation. And some companies give you the freedom to choose between sections. So when you're given that kind of freedom, choose your sections wisely, because quants might take a longer time than usual, or sometimes logical might include pictorial puzzles which might take long to decipher or something like that. So choose your uh, particular section and finish that off first properly. And moving on to the next slide, we'll cover quants. So before I start explaining this, can you see that gradient from green to red? So this will be the most important topics to the least important topics. So the first 5 topics, the first 5 or first 6, that is the number knowledge, which includes number system, HCF, LCM, division, fractions, decimals, etc., is an important one because that's the basis of math. And the time, speed, distance, and time and work are most important. You can expect at least 2 questions of each of these in any of the quantitative exams. And time and work, trains, probability, permutation, combination, all of these are equally important and might vary from 2 to 1 questions. So other stuff such as simple compound interest and profit and loss are a main one. And including simple and compound interest, there are other kinds of similar topics such as bankers discount or investors discount, etc. So you might you might also encounter such type of questions, as well as in profit and loss. You might you might encounter questions such as given a particular error value, like for example, a vendor is using bad weights or is using extra additional weights to scam the customer. So such kind of questions might come. And other topics which are in red, that is geometry, logarithms, pipe systems, boards, and chains. They are not important. I'm not saying they are not important, but they are less frequent. And at least you can see one geometry question and logarithms other than the pipes and cisterns. So these will be rare. And this is for the quantitative. So choose your topics wisely and prepare the ones which are negative in. Now moving on to the logical section. The main topics here would be syllogisms, statements and assumptions, and conclusions. Like for example, they might give you 2 statements, see if the conclusions follow, or they might give the conclusions and see if the statements, given statements contribute to the given conclusions, etc. And clocks and calendars are important. So like for example, they might give you a time and ask what is the angle between the hand pointer and the minute pointer. And for example, the calendars, they might give you a particular date and say what is the day on that particular date, and ask what is the exact date 1 year before or so on, and what is the number of odd days in particular week or in a particular year. And other types of series, so series types of questions also come, that is the odd man out series, the number series, etc. So they might give you a particular number sequence. So this will mostly revolve around arithmetic progression and geometric progression. So be strong in that concepts. And other things such as encoding and decoding, whether given a string, encoded as a particular number or a different string, what will be the given string's value in the same language or coding scheme. And seating arrangement, given PQRS seated in a circular fashion, what is the person from left to the person R, so something like that. And ages is kind of simple, so you won't see it much, but it's equally important. And sometimes if a company really wants to confuse your brain and literally want you'll be unlucky in such situations where they might give you pictorial puzzles. Like they might give you a trippy picture and say count the number of stars or count the number of tiny circles in that whole thing. So if you're proper in that kind of questions and if your vision is clear, you can ace it off or you can consider yourself unlucky. So but don't worry about that. So moving on to the next section. Yeah, so this is data interpretation. So if you know your basic maths, and it'll usually and mostly this will revolve around profit and loss or anything evolving with tables and numbers or in profit and loss, something like that. So they might give you a Tableau column with different values. Like for example, a company sells 3 products PQRS with the year distribution with profit and loss of what is the contribution of this particular product on this year. So tabulation kind of sums might come, as well as bar graphs and pie charts, which are equally important. Line graphs don't come much because usually it's either pie charts, bar graphs, or tables. So line graphs are not that frequent, but you can, if you know how to interpret a proper graph, any type of graph, you can score on those kind of tables also. And going on to the verbal section, we have 3 important topics, that is synonyms and antonyms, comprehension, and sentence errors. So if you know what is the meaning of, if you are strong in your vocabulary, you can crack these. And moreover, on the comprehension side, don't ever go read the paragraph at the start. Read the question because they might actually give you hints. Like for example, in this particular sentence, that is sentence number 2 or 3, what does the author mean? So you don't need to read the whole paragraph. So you can read that particular sentence and try to interrupt with your basic vocabulary knowledge. And synonyms and antonyms, a small trick is to be thorough with your root words. So if you know from which root word that particular word is derived, you can try to predict the particular synonym or the opposite of that word. And sentence errors. So if you're fluent with your English and well in conversations, you can actually start finding out the errors in a sentence. So read out the sentence and see if when you're saying it to other person, will it be proper or grammatically correct. So if so, you can directly put an option, it's none of these, or if you find something which is wrong, you can go with that. And other sentence types include word substitution, where you can substitute a particular word and still doesn't change the meaning. And sentence completion, they might snip out a particular word or the whole part of a sentence, and you'll have to fill in the appropriate options or sentences given below. So don't worry even if you are not prepared properly, because these are the sites where you can get hefty number of resources to work from. So I prefer IndiaBix, Geeks for Geeks, and FacePrep. IndiaBix, you can get topic wise on both verbal, all the 4 topics, that the data impression, verbal, quants, and logical. Similarly for Geeks, each topic will have its own learn page, that is from where you can learn the formulas and the tips and tricks, and the practice, where you can practice about 20 to 30 questions on each. And face prep is, as you can, if you are a person from college who uses face, ethnes, or a smart to for their soft skills training, face prep is the faces site where you can get previous questions, and some companies actually post up their syllabus split, and they also keep updating. So go for, if you're going for any of the service companies, also try to keep updated on these sites, because they might post the syllabus of the particular year, and you can, and the particular topics in each of those sections. And other sites such as the Freshers Live and 1 second, go back to the previous slide, please. So other sites such as Freshers Live, Freshers World have hundreds and 200s of questions on each topic, so you can practice that. Study Tonight, you can use it for your technical skills as well, such as DBMS, OS, networks, etc. And Sand Foundry has thousands of MCQs on whatever topic you can encounter during your placement. So go look into that, and you can practice MCQs from there. And moving on. And for the bookworms out there who like to read from books, you can go to any of these. So S. Chand and R.S. Agarwal, you might have heard in your 12th standard. So this quantitative aptitude particularly helped me in my learning in my quants and cracking the first quantitative sections. And other books such as the logical reasoning and verbal reasoning are equally helpful, and they cover each topic with including the tips and tricks and about 30 example sums, as well as 50 to 100 practice sums. So you can go for these books. And moving on with the presentation.
Alright, so I'm Vishal and I'm going to be talking about resumes. So since most of you are like third years and second years, I think we have a few here. You probably want to know a little bit more about resumes, or you might have a basic resume but you're lacking a few things here and there and you want to know how to proceed. So I'm going to try to cover it in detail but keep it short at the same time so I don't overload the information. Next. Okay, so these are the basic sections a resume normally contains. You have header about your education, details, interests, languages, projects. Now I know this is a lot of subheadings, but what you should remember is you have to fit all this in a page and a half. So now you might be wondering, how am I going to do that? That sounds like a lot of subheadings. It sounds like I'll need at least 2 pages or so. So I have a few tools that I have included in this presentation. Now these 3 tools were helpful for me personally when I was starting out with resume making. But if you really want your resume to stand out, because everyone will be using these sites, right? So if you want your resume to stand out, you have to make it on your own. Next slide. So you'll have to use something like MS Word. But the thing about MS Word is sometimes it'll look a little bland. So you have to be careful about what kind of template you use, what kind of colors you use. You have to find the right balance between splashy and dull. So if it's too splashy, it's too ugly. If it's too dull, it's boring. So you have to find the right balance there. Next slide. So jumping into the sections, we have the header and about first. So you start with your name, your current position, and a small bio, maybe 1 or 2 lines about you. And have a picture of yourself in professional attire, and then your email ID, your phone number, maybe your LinkedIn profile link, your GitHub links. If you have a portfolio website, add the link to that as well. Next slide. And after that, you'll have your education details. Now, your header and about will come at the top of your resume. That will be the first thing that the recruiter will see. Right after that, you'll have your education. Since you're just exiting college, you want to keep this right after that. That's what the recruiters will be looking for. So you list this in a reverse chronological order. So you start with your most recent achievement or degree which you're pursuing, followed by the second most recent, and so on. Next slide. And then you have your interest in languages. Just list them out. Try to make sure these don't take that much space, but at the same time, make sure it's not empty also. Bonus points if you're able to include how proficient you are in languages, but if you can't because of space constraints, it's not a big deal. Next slide. Now here's the interesting stuff, projects and publications. So if you have published any articles and research papers, you can include that under the publication subheading. So how it goes is you have the title first, and then you have the authors, the date of publishing, and in which journal it was published in. And for projects, no matter how many projects you have, I suggest sticking to like 5 to 6 projects, because you don't want to clutter it and make it more than a page, right? So pick your top 5 or top 6 projects, and if you have more than that, you can adapt your resume based on the company you're applying for. So see what the job profile is and have projects related to that. And coming to more about projects, always apply. Can you go to the previous slide? Yeah. Always upload all your code to GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, any of these version control websites. This will help you in case your interview is also online, like Artbatch had. It will be really helpful because they can access the code directly and they can look through the code, maybe ask you questions from that. And deploy your projects. Again, if it's virtual, they can literally see your project working. So deploy it in any of these online options you have, like Heroku, GCP, AWS, whichever you're comfortable with. And lastly, but definitely not the least, I would like to shed some light upon open source contributions. So open source contributions is like if you made any commits to any big projects like OpenCV, for example. If you've made a few commits to that, you want to highlight that in your CV because everyone knows about these projects, everyone uses these projects. It'll be helpful if you could shed some light on that as well. Next. And then you have work experience. It's basically your internships, and like said before, it's good if you have two internships. That's the best measure, I'd say. But if you have one as well, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. The way you display this is you have like the title that was given to you as an intern at which company, from when to when. This is basically the duration, and then what your role was, what you did as an intern in that company. This you list under work experience. Next slide. And then finally you have your skills, achievements, and certificates. Again, now skills, it may not have to be just technical. It can be technical, non-technical, whatever you have. You don't have to be C++, Java, Python, any frameworks you have. You can add skills like leadership skills, speaking skills, whatever you're good at, you add it under skills. Certificates, any certifications you got from Coursera, Udemy, any of these online things. If you're a certified Red Hat developer or something like that, you can add it all here. And then for achievements, what have you achieved through your 4 years of college? Any hackathon wins? Did you win any awards in college? Or you can include extracurricular achievements as well, but make sure the thing is about moderation. You have to find the right balance between technical as well as non-technical. So you just have to find the right balance for that. And again, if it's too much, if you have too many achievements or something like that, find what the company is looking for and create a resume based on that. So my final advice would be have different types of resumes for different types of job offers. And speaking about hackathons, we have Sid with a few words to say about that.
Hey guys, so now I'm going to talk about one of the most underrated things which you can use to build your resume, which is hackathons. So hackathons is basically consider you have a product or company and you're trying to present it in front of investors or people who like to invest. But it has so much thing with hackathons and placements, because in placements we try to sell ourselves to in front of people, and hackathon we try to sell a product. So you know how to present yourself by in a hackathon, it means you can survive placements. So what is a hackathon anyway? So as I just said, hackathon, you basically have any product and you try to present in front of investors, you can say, where people try to invest in your product. So these are the common stages of an hackathon. The first stage is like you have to form a team in the hackathon. Next slide. Yeah, you need to form a team in the hackathon, and next you have to identify a problem statement. Usually a problem statement will be given by the event itself, or you can make your own problem statement. And you try to find and make your own solution, and develop a prototype and pitch in front of expert judges. So after my hackathon, which went horribly wrong, I listed out certain skills which I lacked. One was obviously my tech skills, which was like a absolute noob level. I had no clue about what tech stack to use. And more than in tech skills, what I lacked was confidence. I couldn't present in front of people. So I felt like the non-technical skills outweigh the technical skills, and the same thing can be applied to placements also. Next slide. So now I'll be talking about non-technical skills, because I feel non-technical skills is something which people don't give much importance to. First most important thing is obviously the team formation, forming a team in a hackathon. So try to form a diverse group. So if your group has already a full stack developer, you don't need another full stack developer. Try to diversify the tech skills what your people know in your team. Next slide. And next is choosing the right problem statement. So now I've learned HTML. So just because I know HTML, I don't need to make a website. So I have to look for a problem statement, look if I can actually make a good solution, more unique solution to the problem, then try to break it down into some essential stuff which I need to do to solve the problem statement. And talking about the problem statement, one of the most which people don't realize is the difference between an idea and a hobby. So what is the difference between idea and hobby? So suppose I'm pitching, I'm going to need to make a next Facebook, and Facebook already exceeds 2 billion users. So I don't need to make a next Facebook. So at this point, it's like a hobby website more than a business idea. So any idea you're going to have should have a commercial value. next slide. So every time you try to figure out any product idea, first thing which should come to your mind is who will buy your product. You need to know who's the target audience, and if your product is business to business or business to consumers directly. So the difference is companies like TCS is generally a service-based company. They provide service to other company, and companies like Apple generally makes iPhone for the consumers directly. So that's a general difference. And any competitors for the product, that's also something you should look upon. And one of the most important thing in time management and placements and hackathons is time management, because you'll be having a limited section and you'll be given a limited amount of time. You need to try to finish all the topics, all the given and what you're going to have in a limited amount of time, which is very important. One of the most important skills is the presentation skills one should have. So speaking of presentation skills, you guys, all of you guys must have seen this guy. So yeah, this guy is not so popular. His name is Steve Jobs, I guess, and he's not so popular with technical skills because he's not actually a developer of Apple. Steve Wozniak, but he literally the face of Apple. Reason is his unique technical skills. So speaking about his technical skills, the demo he gave, he used more graphics than actual words, and he'll be giving demos in working products and not prototypes. So even in your resume, if you're mentioning a project, try to make sure it's a working product and not just something you started yesterday and talent resume. Because some interviews are very smart, they'll try to figure it out. And never use buzzwords. Try to keep the presentation as simple as possible. So next slide. So one more thing is obviously which I have to cover is the technical skills which you need to learn. And make sure you're at least well versed with any one language. It can be more than one. So at least make sure you're well versed with one language. It can be anything in the follows: C++, Python, Java, Ruby. It can be anything. Make sure you're well versed. So each language has its own advantage and disadvantage. So when it comes to JavaScript, so as we know, making mobile apps, JavaScript is just language for making mobile application because we can use React Native. And some languages like C++ is already, which must be the first language you have learned and even the first language I learned, but you can't actually make a project with it. It's mostly used in a line of game development and AR, VR development, but you can't actually make a website or mobile applications with it. And obviously, one of the most versatile language is Java. So my dad has been learning Java, my whole family has been learning Java, and you might feel stack is kind of old. It's not getting updated regularly, but Java is still one of the most popular languages. And when it comes to placements, I still bet like every company will look for a Java developer. And now coming to my favorite language is Python. So why I like Python? Because it's the most versatile language. You can do anything between machine learning, web development, automation, you name it, you can do anything. Not mobile development, but you can do most of the stuff. And Python is a go-to language for me. And now I'm going to talk about the four major software development categories. The one is web development. You can do anything between Node.js, JS and React, Node.js and Django or Flask for making websites. And for mobile applications, it's basically just React Native. That's the best thing you can do. There's also nothing called Flutter. And for machine learning, it's Python and it's a library. So yeah. And the last thing is making gaming and AR VR. So in gaming and AR VR, the best language is C++ and C#. Okay. Now, one of the most underrated thing is UI and UX. So if you have your own portfolio website, make sure you give the link in your resume. So interviewer can actually see the link and see how good your website is. So in cases like that, make sure the UI and UX is exceptional because most people don't spend more than 20 seconds looking through a website. So the UI is exceptional. It means he'll have good faith on you. So now we'll be trying to take some Q&A question. Yeah.
Okay, so in the chat, I see a couple of you have been asking about open source contributions. So there's many ways you can list it. I mean, your resume is going to reflect you, so you do you, right? So one way you could list it is under projects itself. You can have a subheading with the name of the project, open source project you contributed to, and what your contribution was. Another way is you can have a separate subheading called open source contributions, and You can list the projects in which you contributed and what your contribution was. So these are two ways you can go about with that. Now this is not compulsory. Like much, I forgot to mention that even publications isn't compulsory because it's more towards the research side, right? I mean, it's always a good to have, but if you don't have any publications, you're going to skip that heading. Please tell about kinds of projects. Again, it depends on what your interest is. This could be a web development project, this could be a machine learning model you developed, anything like that. Now, I think like Sid can pitch in as well because he's gone to many hackathons. He'll also have a good understanding of what different kind of projects are actually valuable.
Yes, I agree.
What?
Wait, that's it.
Yeah. Anyway,
What's the
like
question again?
no. He wants to know about different kind of projects.
Okay. So one of the most obvious things is making websites. So if you know how to make websites, then you can do anything creative. So if you have any idea, if you know how to do web development, you can do almost anything. And what kind of projects? Okay. So this feels like a very general question. So the first thing is if you're trying to learn a language or any tool like a Django or Flask, try if you can. The first thing which you have to start with is the To-Do app. And then if you participate in hackathons, you can find some cool problem statement and try to use your technical skills you learned so far to try to mimic any solution. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
I mean, like he said, you asked like a very general question. Again, it's completely dependent on what your interest is, right? Like, what is your interest? Do you like doing web development? Do you like making websites? Then you make websites. You find the kind of projects that are usually helpful for interviews is you take some kind of a problem, a real world problem, and then you try to solve it. You have like a sort of solution. It doesn't have to exactly solve it, but a kind of solution you propose, and then you try to make something about that. Now, these kind of projects are good in the sense like you can use it for hackathons as well. You can put it in your resume, and you'll have a lot to talk about it as well. So one general advice I can give you is make kind of projects which you'll have a lot to talk about. Because in the HR round of your interview, it's about 70% of the questions I'd say would be from your projects. How you implemented this, how you implemented that, why you did this, why you did that. So like that. Elaborate what is open source contribution. So you must be aware of frameworks like OpenCV, React.js, Express.js. Now, these frameworks are all open source in the sense like the source code is open for modification. You can make software based on it in the sense you can modify it for your own use. And these kind of softwares may or may not have some bugs or issues that you can try to fix. If you make such a contribution to that project in any platform like GitHub, I think most of the projects use GitHub these days. So if you go to GitHub and if you make a contribution to the project, you call that an open source project or open source contribution, right? So these kind of contributions, if it's in a big project which is recognizable by a lot of people, you can put it in your resume and that will add value to your resume. Does that answer your question, Divya? Okay, I'm gonna assume it does. Do you guys have any other questions? Or shall we continue?
I think there was a question above. Okay. Yeah. So like Vishal said, that is open source contribution in a nutshell. You can contribute to your friends' repositories also, but if you contribute to a very popular repository, then that will add more cookie points for your resume. There is one more question here for will this stream be uploaded? Yes, if more people are willing to watch it, we'll upload it. Apart from that, what will be applying for ML engineer? Don't we not need more knowledge in stuff like TensorFlow rather than DSA? Uh, all the DSA process. Okay, I'll tell you why interviews are concentrating on DSA. If you know enough of DSA, it means you can tackle a lot of different problems using specific tools provided by programming and code. That will shape how you think. So DSA's original purpose and actual purpose is that. Apart from that, if you're actually going to be working on TensorFlow, yes, you will need to know for your actual real life work, real life experiences. You will need to know a lot of actual frameworks and TensorFlows. But sometimes, if you're working on data science, most of the times the data will be unsorted. To process all that, to convert it into a good format, you will need efficient algorithms. Or if you're actually contributing to TensorFlow, you'll need a lot of math and DSA background. So DSA is used in jobs, but not at entry level jobs. For entry level jobs, you will also need different other technologies and tech stacks and different stuff. Apart from that, will it be a disadvantage to not have an internship experience or project? Yes, because others will be having internship and experience and projects. To clear the first few rounds, all you'll need is good coding experience and other skills. But after that, once they will start to look at your resume, then it is definitely good to have internships. Because if you don't, somebody else will, and they have a slightly better chance. So it's just competition. The more, the merrier.
There's also a few questions before that, I think.
What did we miss out? Is it enough if we try mastering Java or C++ practicing as well, or should we know knowledgeable tech stacks? Yeah, okay, here's the thing. These hackathons are 24 hours events, so you will be participating and you can learn a lot of different things in 24 hours. Use that as one method to learn different projects, and for the college projects that you will be doing, try to make it as good as possible. Pour out all of your passion and interest into it. That way you have very good projects for your college and resume. Okay, here's another hack that corporate doesn't want you to know. If you're doing projects for your college projects, right, for J components, for example, that's what we call it. You can use the same. If you have a large enough project, you can use it for different types of different courses. For example, I made a website and I used it for internet and web programming course. Simultaneously, the same semester, I had another course called software engineering. So what I did was I added an SRS document for this, and now I have one project that I can use for two courses, which gives you enough time to make this one project as grand as possible. That way, you will pour out all your interest and passion into that. Now you have very good project to add to your resume. You finish college projects and much more. That way, hackathons are much more better because in 24 hours you'll be making a project that you can add to your resume also.
And one more thing which I need to add during presenting a hackathon project is, so make sure you have one core idea which you're trying to solve in your project. So if you have login page in your project and you have like 5 minutes and 10 minutes to pitch, don't start off with the login page. It makes everyone boring. It makes the whole thing boring. So no matter how cool your login page is, start off with the core idea and core feature which your project has.
Okay, amazing. Did we miss out any question? Towards the end of your preparation, work on your C++, Java, and DSA skills because that is what will actually get you a good MNC job. While these projects, hackathons, good resume building, and knowledge of tech stack might also provide you with freelance or internship opportunities depending upon how you network and process. What is it? Is the next question by Prerit Agrawal, Vishal? Or did I miss out anything else?
I think by Sangeet Ravichandran and Akila.
Which is?
Right before the WhatsApp group.
Right. Okay. Do you have any questions towards the end of an interview? If yes, what can be asked? I think Robin covered this in detail. He asked a couple of questions in one of the previous slides. Robin will be answering this, and we'll also be uploading all the slides, all of the documents that we use on our Discord channel. Robin, please answer this question.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so you'll be given like 1 or 2 minutes where you towards the end of the interview where you can ask these questions, and honestly, like if you have any questions to the interviewer pertaining to the company, you can ask. Like for example, during my Amazon interview, the person who was interviewing me was in charge of the Fire TV stick development at Amazon. So I was just asking them what was their idea behind it, and like how many teams work on that particular project, and who decides who will be part of which team. Like these sort of general questions. When they tell you what they do, you can ask questions pertaining to whatever product it is they're designing. Like this will give you a good insight as to how corporate works and how the products are being developed in a company. Like if that interests you. Otherwise, if you want to know how your job is going to be at the company, you can ask questions like, what the work-life balance will be like, so that you'll know how many hours a day you'll be required to work. Also, what is the scope of growth you can get in the company? Like in the next 2-3 years, will you gain a lot of knowledge and will you become a better performing asset and you can get a higher salary? Like, is that sort of growth good in the company? You can also ask about the challenges which are faced in the role, like what sort of thing you might encounter which might be a hindrance. So these sort of questions you can ask your interviewer depending on what it is you. I hope that answered you.
Okay, that is answered. And then there's Sangeet. This should be a cliche question. Will there be any judgment from the interviewer's side if we come from a mechanical background? If you cleared the first few coding rounds and then you go into an interview, then the interviewer has no right to judge you based upon your background, because they are all equal opportunity employers, and you cleared their one of the toughest rounds that they could conduct. So be very proud of it. They won't be judging you. But there are some companies whose job description itself requires people from different people from CSE or IT background only, that they will not allow you to write the next round, or the first coding round itself. So those companies you can avoid, or you won't be selected anyway. I think this is the last question, and then we can move on to the next section. Do we really need referrals? Will much companies won't come to campus cause of pandemic? Okay, that pertains to networking, contacts, and the amount of referrals that you have, right? Robin, do you want to take this question?
See, it depends on whether you're in third year or in fourth. If you're in your third year and the college has this requirement for you to do an internship, it'll be a good idea to not rely on the internships which come to college, because there are only going to be like a maximum of 10 companies and they're going to take like 3 or 4 people each, and the college has more than 1,500 people in a batch, right? So in this case, it's definitely a good idea to start asking your uncle, your auntie, your neighbors, whoever is in that sort of power where you can get a referral. It's a good idea to get a referral if it's a good company. Try not to rely on the internships which are offered by.
Okay, you will also have to concentrate on your off-campus placement in case if there isn't enough companies coming to your campus. In which case, LinkedIn is your best friend. You can approach different people working in different companies, try to network, contact, and in that case, your resume will be of utmost importance, and your code forces ranking will place you at the peak. They will opt for you even if sometimes they have much less job opportunities also. And yes, we'll try to keep it on Discord. WhatsApp is used for notification purposes, and Discord gives us control over a lot of things. We can recirculate. We have bots to monitor. So if possible, as much as possible, try to use Discord, Divya. I think we are done with this section of Q&A. We'll have one towards the very end. So stay tuned.
One second,
Now,
Ganesh.
okay.
About the last question, the documents will be uploaded. Like whenever we are gonna share any resources, we'll be sharing it on Discord for sure, but we'll also be sending it on WhatsApp. Now, the reason we chose Discord is whenever you guys have queries, we found it really efficient to choose a platform like Discord where we have categorized each server based on a particular topic. That is the very reason why we chose Discord, and we are trying to create a ecosystem around Discord where students will answer questions asked by students and us moderators will answer these questions as well. But we'll try to share the resources as much as possible in both WhatsApp and Discord, and I'll send the links over here after this. Right? Yeah, Vignesh, you can carry on.
Okay, getting back. This placement season is very stressful. Unlike other placement seasons, this is much more stressful. For which process? Because sometimes you might witness your very close personal friend get into one of the big companies and you are still left without jobless. How do you deal with that? Isn't that emotionally tolling? What do you do in that case? Here we have Ashwin and Shankar to demonstrate how to change your thought process to have a better mental health.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, guys. So let's talk about a little bit of motivation. Too much of technical coming around. Okay. So as you've already seen, right? There are actually DSAs, and you should have a little bit of hackathons and your resume. Even though you do everything right, there are sometimes when things really don't go your way. I hope it does not, but sometimes things doesn't really go your way. So let's see what we can do to build our confidence. Okay, so two things we should really look at. One thing is to avoid negativity, and the second thing is to increase positivity. Okay, so in order to avoid negativity, there might be a lot of people here who are from mechanical or ECE background, and hearing too much of computer science and data structures and all of that, you might be a little bit worried, right? Oh my God, my branch doesn't have really this much, and even though when it had, sometimes you might not really be focusing on them. So don't really worry on them because we actually have a lot of content coming, and we can actually help you out. And data structures are just a tool for problem solving. Companies will look on your problem solving ability. They won't look they will look, but they won't look much into your coding problems. They look at your problem solving ability. So for problem solving, you can actually do that. That basically depends on the individual on how good is he at problem solving. And when you talk about problem solving, when you practice hard, you might encounter a lot of algorithms. There are few in our channel as well. You can see. So when you're doing all those algorithms, you might and one second. Can you go back? Okay, I think we have small problem. Okay. So, when you actually have a lot of algorithms to do, it becomes difficult for you to remember and, sometimes apply where those algorithms are. So, in that case, I don't think you should feel disappointed, because whenever you're learning something new or whenever you're revising, it's again getting into your memory or again learning it. So, this is, you treat it like a revision and don't get upset over this. There will be a situation when you will encounter that you have to learn a lot, but don't worry, just keep moving ahead and keep trusting yourself, and then you will ultimately become better, and don't lose confidence. And the third thing is, guys, results. Results are a culmination of a lot of factors. There'll be your DSA skills, your problem solving skills, sometimes your resume, sometimes CGPA as well. So there's a lot of things which comes into consideration, sometimes your speaking skills as well. So there are a lot of things which comes into consideration, and results are not really in your hands, to be honest. Even though you do things, there will be companies might have a few ideas on what kind of people they will take. Like few companies, they might come for a person who has more worked on hardware, like for example, mechanical. Some companies might come for a software role, so they would prefer, someone from computer science department. So, even those things matter. So results are not really in your hands. What really is in your hands is the process and your studying and your problem solving ability. So in case if you have solved the problem better, just be calm and go ahead. And one more thing, guys, is probably the most important thing. Whenever you're learning new things, when you actually teach someone, you also become better, isn't it? A lot of us used to do this. So what we would suggest is, whenever you're learning new things, any new algorithms, or did you see any new content to read, you can actually share it with your friends, because when you do, they might do well and back as well. No need to expect, but they might do sometimes well and back as well. So when you talk to someone about something, then it gets registered in your mind, and it might as well get registered in your heart. So it becomes very easy to recollect and apply those things. So in case if you can do all this stuff, it becomes very easy for you to understand things. Next one. Okay. You know what? Sometimes you might find things tough as well. Like actually there are a lot of placement companies coming up, but as the time passes and passes, it becomes little difficult for you to understand what really might be the strategy. Don't worry, we are here to help you. And in case if you got through some failure, then you can as well introspect what happened there. You can learn from the past, and these are mostly the personal things which at that time you might sometimes need a shoulder to rest upon at that time as well. So we are here to help you, and don't worry, just keep believing in yourself, and we can move further. Okay. So this is the latter part, which is actually after placement. In case if you're not really okay with the kind of role which is coming, not the company. Always consider, guys, any job is important, and considering the present situation, all jobs are important, and it might be better as well for you. The role is also much important. So in case if you are not really liking the role, there are other things also which you can do. For example, research. We talked a lot about open source. Vishal talked a lot about open source, how you can contribute to it. So, small examples I would like to say, like TensorFlow or OpenCV. Look at that. Even if you increase the accuracy of the model by even 0.01%, that's a big thing, guys. Trust me, that's a very, very big thing. So you can work on those research models. You can, increase the accuracy, minimize the loss. If you are very, very skilled at making projects, which few minutes back Siddharth talked about, you might as well make your own startups. If you are in Twitter, especially, you can see a lot of people making their own startups, and them sharing the links as well. So you can do that also. Don't worry, computer science technologies are in demand nowadays. So your startup might as well get a boost. And as I've already told, there are a lot of open source. And here, from Google, Microsoft, there's GSOC, which you can prepare as well. GSOC hires completely on your problem solving skills. They have their own tests. There they won't much see of your CGPA and all. They'll see they will see to a particular extent, but they'll see how good is your problem solving ability. They have their own tests where you can, give, and then they will be having their own interview. There's no much discrimination and all. So, you can actually, for stress, in case if you come across much stress, then you can probably write. If you're good at writing, you can draw, or you can might as well play a little bit of guitar. If you're good at music, take some time away from placements and relax yourself. And yeah, I think that's it. Now I would like to give the opportunity for Vignesh to carry out.
As we have already mentioned, we have our Discord community and WhatsApp community. Essentially, all we're trying to do is build a community of helpful learners where you will be helping each other, and we'll provide the proper direction for you to sail in. Here's a quick crash course on Discord by Vishal.
Okay, so as explained before by Robin, we chose Discord because it's very easy to separate the channels, and this helps us separate different topics from each other. And it's also very easy to moderate compared to WhatsApp, where we'll have to do everything on our own. Here we can deploy bots to do that. More on that later. Next slide. So this is what the Discord server basically looks like. You can see there's a lot going on here, but if you're new to Discord, then don't freak out. If you already use Discord, then this is what a typical Discord server looks like. So next slide. And yeah, as you can see to the right, you can see all the channels, text channels that are available. Every topic has its own separate text channel where you can approach us for the topics which are there. We also have off-topic channels where you can just hang out and relax. Then we have bots to help us moderate. We have different roles for different people. We obviously have moderators, but we mainly use the bots for moderating the servers. That's all for that. And we also have the YouTube channel where you're watching the stream. Currently we are concentrating on all coding problems, but side by side we are also looking at internship experiences. We have Brevity, where we try to bring in interesting people for us to ask their tips, tricks that they used. And these are some of the videos that we have, some of our popular videos. So Akash, I think you can take over from here, right?
Yeah, thank you, Vishal. So that brings us to the end of our live session for today. It has been quite interactive, I believe. We had never. This has actually been our first live session, and we're really happy to have faced so many questions from you guys. Keep up the good work, guys. And that's all I would like to say. And one more thing. Don't think that this is not your time. Like Ashwin said, your time will come eventually. So keep hustling, keep working out. There's still ample time left for your placements to come. So don't worry, guys. All's good. Vignesh, would you like to say some more words? Closing words?
This QR code to get the materials, join a Discord, enter our WhatsApp for notifications and some materials. Let's all learn and grow together, guys. That's all we expect. There's been VAT students called Brevity, and we are your seniors from 4th years. Thank you so much for being an amazing audience. Is there any questions left? Or
Okay, so we did see a lot of questions about projects. So we'll have a few videos coming out about that. In fact, we are working on one right now. It's going to be under Brevi TV. We are bringing someone in who has a lot of experience with hackathons, projects, and that sort of stuff. So that video is coming out soon. So stay tuned to the channel. And about your suggestions for off-campus opportunities and all that, we'll definitely take that into account and probably release a video in the future.
thank you so much for being an amazing audience, guys. That's the right way to end this stream. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to your friends so they might also benefit from this. See you guys soon.